right, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are doing our 2025 annual report and our virtual town hall meeting for 2026. We appreciate everyone who has attended and come today and is a part of this. And for those of you who don't know, I am Cassandra Robledo. I am the program director of Focus. And we also have joining us today, Dan Webb, who is the founder of Catalyst Research. He works with us in doing all of our data. He does the Clyde survey, the youth survey in our schools. And he works with many coalitions in the area doing their data as well. So we are happy to have him with us today. And we are going through our 2025 annual report. So all the things that happened last year, which is really cool. And at first, I do want to start with our president's letter. Our president, Gwendolyn Bork, could not be with us today. And so I will be reading the letter on behalf of her. So if you are reading this letter, it is because you care. And because you care, we celebrate your courage to stand up for those in need and do something about it in 2026. You, my friend, are a change maker. At Focus, the Western New York Youth Addiction Prevention Coalition, our mission is to prevent, reduce youth addiction through community collaboration. We empower our local community by educating them on current drug trends, resources available through our strategic partners, and hosting drug-free events. We use data-driven, evidence-based strategies that's proven to be effective over time in changing a community. We collect and analyze our data every 2 years from our 8th, 10th, and 12th grade Lancaster and Depew students. We share that data with our strategic partners and create programming to provide support to our local youth to empower them. We have been incredibly successful in our goals to reduce youth substance use year after year, meeting and exceeding our numbers, reinforcing our work and its effectiveness. And we'll talk about that more today. Our goal remains the same over the next coming years, and that is to connect with more youth and their families, become sustainable through strategic partnerships that become legacy partners or community contributors, and continue to grow our network of support for the youth in need. Our youth are screaming to be seen, clawing at the edges of the windows of their soul to escape into a world with compassion and empathy. Societal instability wreaks havoc on a heart meant for innocence and innovation, purging its innocence and forging an armored soldier to stand in its place, unbothered and unbroken. Yet the reality is there are kids in this community right now breaking as we speak, faking a smile when they walk into class and pretending the world they walked out of that day doesn't exist, until it does again once the final bell rings and they must go back into battle. What is the answer? You are the answer. See them, acknowledge them, look into their eyes, and embrace that which is hidden. Guide them, mentor them, support their dreams, tell them you love them, and most importantly, that you believe in them. May we walk into rooms once clouded by anonymity and spark a flame of unity, a community of connectedness and empowered by hope. May we see the youth in our community as the torchbearers of the next civilization who will stand by the weakest of theirs until they are strong enough to join the fight. As a generation, wise sages, let us guide them from making our same mistakes in hopes that they do better, live better, and love better. You are the answer. You have always been the answer. You have known this your whole life. Your experience, circumstances, past and present, trials and tribulations have led to this place called here, right now. And the time is now. Don't hide from who you once were, but expose it in the light to a lost generation seeking truth. They don't care what you were, but what you are. Yes, you are the answer. The question now is, what will you do? On behalf of our president, Gwendolyn Bork. And this is just showing our board of directors, our current board of directors. You can also find this on our website. Thank you all for your service.
I can talk about this part if you'd like, Cassandra.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody. As Cassandra said, my name is Dan Webb. I am a Depew native, so it's good to be around folks that I live by. And yes, I've been working with Focus for, probably 10, 15 years now before DFC funding even got into place. So it's good to see some familiar faces, and I know a lot of your names from the board of directors and from listings of all the good work that is done with the coalition. So, as Cassandra said, I work with a lot of coalitions on mainly data and program evaluation, surveys, that kind of thing. And what I'm going to do is walk you through some background information on the coalition, and then talk a little bit about the survey stats. So, just in general, some overview items on the coalition. So, Focus, as we know it today, was established in January 2018 with the mission of preventing and reducing youth substance use in Western New York through community collaboration. The vision of the coalition is a drug-free community with drug-free youth. So if we can, as we see here, look through our glasses and see into the future, that's what we imagine for our community here. And everybody, I know everybody here is committed to that. Um, and hopefully everybody watching on live stream, is committed to that mission in one way or another as well, and mission and vision. And tactics. So we are a federally funded coalition, which means that we do have certain tactics, as it said here, or ways, methods that we reach out to the community, and most of that involves choosing evidence-based interventions and programs that are based on data that we collect and identify target areas and priorities. Most of our work through Focus is intended to change the environment in which not only youth live, but we all live. So changing the norms of communities, making it so that it isn't seen as cool to drink or use marijuana, or not having parents host at home, that sort of thing. So changing the environment is a major part of the tactics of the coalition. And we also use a youth-centered approach. And there are some planning frameworks that we use that I'm not going to get into the jargon for this presentation. But we do have a lot of sort of guidelines and a playing field that is well established for us to carry out the mission and vision for the coalition. So, to that end, and this top part here with 12 community sectors, this is really the key, one of the key pillars of coalition work in general. The feds, along with their technical assistance partners, have defined 12 community sectors. That's everything from youth to schools to media. You can see everything here. Might be able to zoom in and see them a little more. If I do that, I don't think I can do that in full screen. But you will get this report, so you can check out all the 12 sectors if you'd like. But that is the idea, is bringing everybody together to reach that mission and vision that we discussed before. And I guess I am going to get into the jargon. So the framework that we use is called the Strategic Prevention Framework. So, the big part of explaining this is kind of letting everybody know the playing field that we have to use the resources that are provided by the grant. And one of the things that we need to do is use what's called the Strategic Prevention Framework in order to assess our needs, build the capacity to address our issues, plan, implement, and evaluate, all with the idea of having sustainable efforts and culturally competent efforts, in the sense of using materials and methods that are appropriate for whatever population we are trying to reach. And we also follow what is called the 7 strategies for community change. And that ranges, I am just going to read these off for you. So it's providing information, enhancing skills, changing physical design, so actually changing the physical landscape, providing support, that might be offering alternative healthy events when there's, a lot of drinking happening around maybe prom season, that sort of thing. Enhancing access, reducing barriers, so making it easier for folks to get resources, reducing barriers that might exist, like transportation issues, that sort of thing, changing consequences. So recognizing those folks that are in compliance, for example, in retail situations, changing consequences in schools for violating policies, that sort of thing. And then that feeds into modifying, changing policies. So all of these 7 strategies are to be used by us as community leaders in affecting the change that we want to see. And what is the change that we want to see? So we, as federal grantees, we are required to report on several outcomes, substance use outcomes among youth. And we do that by using a validated research-based survey that we administer once every 2 years in the schools. And we are fortunate to have the cooperation from both Lancaster and Depew schools. Without the cooperation from the school districts, we would be really in rough shape in terms of being able to get data from students. So we, would always want to give a shout out to our school partners because they are critical in many ways, including getting data from the students. So what we do is we administer a survey once every 2 years. Happy to answer questions later on if people have questions about the survey itself. But it is an anonymous survey and it asks about a bunch of different topics, not just substance use. So one thing to keep in mind is that as a coalition, we have a wealth of youth data. So if you are on this call, or you're watching the live stream and you're interested in sort of maybe the relationship between, let's say, mental health struggles and substance use, those are the sorts of things that we have data on and we can use to report back to community partners. So when you think about this survey, we often think about it just as a substance use survey, but it is much more than just a substance use survey. In terms of the number of students that complete the survey, we average about 1,300 students in grades 8, 10, and 12 for our survey administrations, which is a really healthy response rate for our survey, which means that we have a generalizable data set. Once we start to get information from this number of students, we can say the information that we have is indeed representative of the overall population of students in high school, late middle school into high school. So what we're required to report on from the feds is a series of what we call the 4 core measures. The measure that we're going to talk about today is past 30-day substance use. And again, there are some that we are required to report on that are maybe not as pertinent these days. They're still on this slide. And we also added a couple things here that we know are of more concern in school districts and communities that we are not required to collect by federal statute for our grant. So this table here, the first column is just the substance, right? And so we have alcohol, any type of alcohol. We have cigarettes. This is one of the ones that's federally required. Obviously, cigarettes have been, if not replaced, they have been, largely taken over by vaping nicotine, right? That's why we added vaping nicotine here. But that's still something that we're required to report back to the federal government. Marijuana. So this is the question here is just, did you use marijuana in the past 30 days? One of the things that we'll find with these metrics is that we the delivery method, we will probably want to do some secondary data analysis to see, like, across all the different delivery methods for marijuana, what is the actual prevalence? So that is to say, um, if you vape marijuana, or if you used edibles, or if you use dabs, or if you smoked, a joint, that sort of thing. You know, getting all of those delivery methods accounted for. In this case, though, it's just a question that just says, did you use marijuana in the past 30 days? We have opioid prescriptions, we have vaping nicotine, and we have vaping marijuana. So one thing, and I was going to switch to a web browser, but just take my word for it, or do a Google if you'd like for yourself. One of the things that is happening in the country, and it started out around COVID times, was this major drop in substance use among youth, not just locally, but nationally. So you'll be able to check out, I was reading a USA Today article from just a few days ago that talks about the precipitous drop in the number of young youth and young adults that are drinking alcohol. And so there was an assumption that when COVID hit, kids were not around able to sort of hang out, maybe not able to hang out at parties and share drinks or share vapes or whatever it might be. And that the beginning, in 2020, where 2021, those areas, folks were thinking, okay, well, once the kids start to get back together and they're able to hang out together again, these numbers will go back up. What we have seen, and the research in general has shown nationwide, that those numbers have not gone back up. So I'm just going to highlight each one of these. So what you see here is in 2019, we did our first administration of the youth survey. In 2019, we had 33.2% of youth indicate using alcohol in the past 30 days. We had 1.3% indicating cigarettes, 12.1% indicating marijuana. And at that point, opioids and vaping were still sort of not new on the scene, but they were not on our survey. By 2021, so we were fortunate enough to be able to survey during sort of, I guess, the peak of COVID, when everything was kind of shut down for a while there. Our schools were just reopening or had hybrid, that sort of thing. We were able to survey, and we saw this huge drop, right, where alcohol use had dropped in half. Cigarette use has kind of stayed the same, around 1.5% of kids using cigarettes. We also saw a big drop in marijuana use from 2019 to 2021. You do have almost 10% of the kids saying that they vape nicotine, and about 5% of the kids saying they vaped marijuana. So what we expected as a coalition was for these numbers to bounce back, not in a good way. We expected them to go back up. So, when we administered in 2023, lo and behold, the numbers kept going in the direction that we wanted them to. Not as big of a drop from 2019 to 2021, but still a drop. You look at all of these metrics, the only one that went up was cigarettes, but that was by 0.2%, basically flat, right? And we just got done surveying, not it was a fall, I believe, 25, right, when we surveyed in the schools again. And we see again here that it's under 10% of students indicating that they've used alcohol, that they've used marijuana, that they vape nicotine, that they vape marijuana. And these numbers compare very favorably to the national averages. You can see here 2024 is the most recent national comparison that we have, but it is a apples to apples comparison, grades 8, 10, and 12. And you can see here that our area, and in general, Western New York, has the suburban schools of Western New York generally have numbers that compare favorably to the national numbers. there is, again, some discussion to be had about the delivery method. So that is to say that if we combined the marijuana metric and the vaping marijuana metric and the edibles, these numbers might be up a little bit, but certainly not to the levels that they were at in 2019. So the good news is that these numbers keep going down. And it's a testament to not only community work, there's a lot of research that is showing that young folks are much more aware of their mental health and taking care of their mental health, and understanding the effects of alcohol and marijuana and other drugs on the developing brain, the bad effects on their health in general. I was reading an article about youth feeling less inclined to use alcohol because they don't want to be filmed on social media doing something completely crazy and then going viral for, for all the wrong reasons. So, that might be the only good thing about social media, right? Is that you don't want to end up in some sort of as some sort of meme or something like that. So I think kids are definitely thinking about their well-being, their mental health, and that is a testament to the work that everybody on this call and the folks that are listening on the live stream, a testament to the work that you're doing in making sure that students feel heard, students have the resources that they need, and overall just sticking with it, right? Just making sure that we don't see one drop and then say, drop in the percentages and then say, okay, our job is done. We don't have to talk about this ever again, and then the numbers go back up. So there's a lot on this one page. I'd be happy to answer some questions about it if we have time at the end here. But for right now, the headline from the stats standpoint is that the numbers are going in the right direction. The numbers are mimicking or at least following the pattern of the national numbers, that are showing that fewer youth are getting involved with alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, all types of substances. So good news there, and certainly, there's a lot to talk about based on this one page, I would say. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. So before I turn it back to Cass, I'd like to just talk about these four major goals that Gwendolyn asks us to lay out each year. So our first goal is to decrease past 30-day marijuana use by 2% every 2 years. So we went from 4.9% to 3.5%. That is not a 2 percentage point decrease, but it is 2%. So that is met. Decreasing alcohol use by 2% every 2 years, 11.7 to 8.7. Again, these numbers are going in the right direction. There was a huge outcome three is about getting parents and youth involved. One thing that Focus does really well is get youth involved. Your coalition is awesome at getting youth to participate and volunteer. So you had a big spike from 2023 to 2024 where went from like 16 youth and adults to 34. From 24 to 25, that number decreased a little bit, but it's still a very healthy representation from youth and parents. And finally, the annual goal of raising $20,000. That's a pretty aggressive annual goal for even over a few years. I'm not sure if that's just the annual goal or over a few years, but either way, $20,000 in private funding it's a tall order for a community coalition. And that's another thing that you do really well as a coalition is raise funding. So $13,300 in private funding. There are a lot of coalitions that operate for 5, 10 years and don't raise that amount of money. So with the partnership programs and the legacy programs and all that community contributor programs, you all have done a really great job in raising funds as well. Even though we didn't reach our goal, It is an aggressive goal, so I would say, this is a pretty successful outcome anyway. So that's a little update on survey stats and some of the goals for the coalition. Now what I'm going to do is just turn it. Oh, well, actually, I can read this one as well. So I'll just do this at a high level. 66 activities offered. So again, we use those 7 strategies for community change and the strategic prevention framework to choose different activities. So 66 activities over the course of a year, 6,500 about adults reached, over 500 youth reached. One thing that was really interesting was to me was the increase in, and I'm not just going to just sit here and read these numbers to you at the bottom, but the takeaway is that the social media reach has increased quite a bit, and your advertising and television and radio, you're really reaching a lot of people. These are all things that the coalition does really well. And so there's kudos to everybody that gets involved in putting together social media posts or videos or contributing to the development of commercials, that sort of thing. There's really a great reach for media for the Focus Coalition. So with that, I'm just going to toss it over to Cassandra for her to give you some highlights of what has happened specifically in terms of events over the past year, and then I think we'll kind of hit the wrap up.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so this is just kind of an overview of all of our events from last year. And many of you are involved in it, are participating in them, so you already know. And you will receive this report with all of the blurbs on there. So just a little highlight, we usually start in the fall with our going to the Erie County Fall Fest and tabling there. And getting the youth really involved, usually through like a scavenger hunt or something like that, so that the youth and their families come to the table and are involved and learn more about the coalition. And then, of course, we have our Community Impact Awards dinner, where we really like to award and highlight the people in the community that really made an impact that year, which many of you attend as well. And then moving forward, we did host our very first meat raffle fundraiser this past spring, and we felt like that was a success. It was a lot of fun and we enjoyed it. And again, we appreciate all the help and the support that we received from that event. And then we also hosted our Spring Community Impact Conference, which is where we gather nonprofit leaders and business owners, community stakeholders all across Western New York to come together and talk about community impact within an organization and how can they improve that and start to work more and be more involved in their community. Moving forward. So these are all of the youth outreach events. This year, we also had a very first event, which was the Climbing Up to High School. This was just for the 8th graders who are getting ready for high school. We took them to a rock climbing studio and had them rock climb and gave them pizza, and they had a lot of fun. We had a lot of new students that came that hadn't heard of the coalition before, and so them and their parents learned about the coalition for the first time. It was a success. And then we have our annual mini golf tournament, which we do every year as well, moving forward. And then obviously, of course, finally our Glow Fest, which is our biggest, most signature community event that we do every year. And again, we felt like this was a great success. So we appreciate all the support that we continue to receive from everybody, from the community and the coalition. It takes a village, obviously, we know, so we would not be able to host these large events without all of you. So we appreciate your work and your effort in that. And with that, I will turn the time back over to Dan, talk a little bit about our Legacy Partner Program.
Sure. So one of the things that the coalition, and again, since I do a lot of work with coalitions, it's really great to see this endeavor, this Legacy Partner Program. So the coalition with Gwendolyn and Cassandra's lead setting up the Legacy Partner Program where you're able to um, donate and not only receive some recognition. I see some of our legacy partners on the call today or were on the call earlier. But this is not only a way to demonstrate your support for the coalition's work, but also to directly help youth and young adults in the community. You can see here that we have a $5,000 donation tier, and you're able to get on TV with that donation. We currently are looking for, I believe we had one 5,000 legacy partner last year. We are looking for our latest in the saga. So if anybody is interested in making a substantial donation, please do consider that. The Platinum Legacy Partners, and if you go to the coalition's website, there's just a section that talks about giving or donate. I forget exactly what the menu option is, but you'll be able to see what comes along with each one of these donation tiers. It might even be in the next page. But at the $1,000 donation level, we have a very healthy group of not only organizations and individuals, local businesses, Tops, Brick Oven, Gwen's Queen City Collaborative. We have national industries like Chick-fil-A and Ingram. We also have Prince of Peace and Robert Schaff Insurance and Real Estate. And then we have all of these great individuals that have contributed their personal funds to this effort. And last but certainly not least is our Gold Legacy Partners, which is a $500 to $999 donation. And I'm just going to highlight the organizations here: the Rotary Club of Lancaster Depew, Nickel City Realty, Broadway Driving Range and Mini Golf. That's where the mini golf tournament takes place. Jessica Colpitt's law offices, the teachers associations and organizations for both Lancaster and Depew, Amherst Lutheran and Prince of Peace Lutheran, and also the Labounty family, the Zach family, and the Smith family. So this is how we get to that total of, getting close, or, getting to 70% of getting to $20,000 per year, is by getting these generous donations. And this is what helps the coalition be sustainable as well, right? Because this funding is going to run out one day, the federal funding. So the idea is to get this roster of contributors as solid as possible so that we're still able to put on things like GlowFest and, more formal sort of education programs, everything, all the great stuff that Focus does. So, as I mentioned earlier, we $13,000 raised privately, which takes us to 66% of our goal. We do have $130,000 and change per year through our Drug Free Communities grant. Unfortunately, we are now at $0 from the state and county. We used to get money from them, but that has since sunsetted, which is the way these funding streams work. But the private is at the highest it's been. So again, just another call to all the individuals that might be tuned in right now to consider contributing to the work that really is making a big difference in the lives of youth in the Lancaster Depew community. So, you don't have to just open your wallet to make a change in the community, of course. That you can just come to meetings. You can provide. It just doesn't have to be a monetary donation. If you have space that you can offer to host events, that sort of thing. Just anything that you can think of, resources that you might have that might be useful for the community coalition. These are ways that we can sustain our work without federal funding, because that day, like I said, will come. So please feel free to take a look at that. And then here, this is kind of a closing letter. And if you want, Cass, I can just go ahead and read it. And okay. So, over the past decade, every community has been impacted by the opioid crisis. However, we understand that this crisis is a symptom of a much bigger epidemic, addiction. In addiction science, we know there is one answer to stopping addiction, and that's prevention. So, and we also know that every $1 spent on prevention saves $10 in government addiction costs. So, this is one of those things where, I mean, that's where the saying started, right? An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. Unfortunately, we are a society that is really kind of focused on the curing and treatment, but prevention is a key aspect of this entire picture. So the more we can affect, affect things on the front end, this is the less cleanup that we'll have to do on the back end. So Focus, the mission is to prevent and reduce substance use among our youth through community collaboration. And like I mentioned, it's not just going out and having fun at GlowFest. It is doing education. It's having those drug-free events. It's empowering youth through leadership and different opportunities for them to get involved in the community. As we strive to cultivate a healthier and safer community, no single entity bears the sole responsibility for empowering our youth. It takes a community. And partners include Department of Health, Spectrum Health, Kids Escaping Drugs, Prevention Council of Erie County, New York State Senate, and Congress. Everything we do is data-driven and evidence-based, as I've mentioned a couple times. So, as I've also said, your support and contribution, no matter the size, will play a crucial role in our efforts to reduce overdose deaths, minimize the risk of addiction among our youth, and improve public health in Western New York. You will help us expand our reach and overall impact, enhance our programs and events, and empower our youth for their future as they, their parents, and our community as a whole lead healthier, more fulfilling lives. So, as I mentioned, at the legacy partnerships, the Diamond Legacy Partners, the Platinum Legacy Partners, the Gold Legacy Partners, all partners are added to the website, recognized with plaques and through media. So you do get a nice plaque that you're able to take back to your office and hang up saying that you support the effort. You do get, as we saw, the reach of the media. You get a lot of exposure through these contributions. Um, and you can click right through on this report once you get it to get right to the page to become a legacy partner. Community contributor. Now that's just a different sort of a straight donation, right? Where you're just contributing, not just, but you are contributing a certain amount monthly. And that has some different levels as well, $10, 20, 30, 40. And you can cancel at any time. And you can sponsor. The final way that you get involved is sponsoring one of the events in 2026. And in order to just see how you might be able to help out with any of this, and again, donation is not the only way, and cash is not the only way to get involved. Just volunteering, showing up to the meetings, those are all equally important things. So I definitely don't want to have that be lost in the message here. Here's what's coming up in 26. So we have everything from today. Is today the 14th of January already? I guess it is. So
13.
today's our virtual town hall. We have a teen trivia party coming up next month. All these dates are on the website. Another meat raffle will be coming up. As Cass said, there's a spring impact conference. There will be a color run in June, which will be here before we know it. Again, another mini golf, another Glow Fest at Como Park, another Fall Fest, and another Community Impact Awards and annual fundraiser. So there's a lot, if you can come to one of these, that's great. If you can come to all of them, even better. You just get to meet great people, and everybody has a common goal of helping our community and especially helping our youth. And you can, again, for ourcommunitytoday.org, you can go there and check all of this stuff out. I think that might be the end of the report. It is. So, Cass, do you want to see if there are any questions or anything like that?
Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, so as Dan mentioned, all of this can be found on our website, and you all should have received, or you will receive a copy of this annual report. So you can look through it and get all of that information. So let me stop the live.